Thursday, December the 14th, and this is WagerTalk Today on WagerTalk TV. I am Steve Merrill, filling in for the Prez one final time. He says 100% guaranteed lock of the century. He will be back tomorrow on Friday, so you can book it. I still got to make sure he gets across customs zone to the borders of Canada. In the meantime, I'm joined by my co-host Teddy Covers as always, and we've got a great lineup on Thursday. We're going to start it off with Jimmy Adams talking some NFL and college football bowl action. Also, Carmine Bianco talking NHL. And also a little NFL Thursday night football prop action. Also, Kyle Anthony, the fight expert, MMA this weekend as well. Don't forget about UFC. We've got it all covered today on Thursday's edition of Wager Talk Today. Like, comment below, and don't forget to hit subscribe and hit the bell for instant alerts so you know when all these shows and videos go live every day on Wager Talk TV. And without further ado, let's bring on Jimmy Adams. Jimmy, we're going to look at a bowl game in a little bit. The bowls start this Saturday. But first, welcome to the show. What do you got for us here at WagerTalk.com?
Hey, thanks for having me. Good morning, Steve and Teddy. Half price Thursdays. This is exciting. I got a Thursday night football game in the NFL. We've cast our last 5 there. I have a 5% play on Saturday. We're going to talk another bowl game, so let's get into it.
Sure. Half price Thursdays, all daily packages for half price today and today only. Go back to regular price at midnight tonight. So it's a great day to get on board with any package over at WagerTalk.com. Jimmy, let's start in the NFL for Sunday and talk about the Browns and the Bears. Right now, look at the WagerTalk live odds screen. I'm seeing Cleveland -3 across the board with juice, -15, -20 at a lot of books. Total sitting at 38.5. What do you want to do with the Bears and the Browns?
Yeah, so the Bears were able to get their revenge on the Lions last week, but I don't expect Justin Fields to have much success in this matchup as the Browns give up the fewest yards in the NFL. And prior to that, Chicago beat the Vikings by 2 while scoring just 12 points. They also have a win by 3 against the Panthers, the worst team in the league. So we want to exercise some caution, I think, before jumping on the Bears bandwagon. And their rush defense, which has been the strength of this team all season long, just gave up 5.8 yards per carry last week to Detroit despite the win. So if they can't get that corrected, they're going to have a lot of problems here. So, yeah, if they can't stop the run, it's going to be a very long day because Joe Flacco is back and ready to go to work on a poor Chicago secondary. Now, is Joe Flacco someone we're going to want to bet on every single week? Probably not, remains to be seen, but I think we do so here. Flacco, 311 yards, 3 TDs, a rating of 92 in Cleveland's win and cover over Jacksonville last week. He has the experience and the talent to work with in Amari Cooper and David Njoku. He had 2 TDs in that game. The Browns have actually been very good when it comes to keeping opposing quarterbacks on the ground. Not key here. With Fields' mobility, they're going to need to keep him from getting out of the pocket at least as much as possible. And they also just held Travis Etienne to just 2.5 yards per carry. They had 3 picks and 4 sacks on Trevor Lawrence, and the sacks number was probably low. They were in his face all game long with quarterback pressures and hits. The Browns need to keep winning at 8-5. This is a good team to do it against. They get the win and cover at home. Give me Cleveland on Sunday.
So the injury report for the Cleveland Browns this week isn't pretty, and that's why this line is held at 3. I think that's why it was 3 to begin with. Grant Delpit, who's been, their best back 7 player. I mean, Garrett's probably their best defensive player on the line, but Delpit now out for the year. A guy who's played at a Pro Bowl level this season. Okunworo out for the year. He's their second leading sacker behind Myles Garrett. On the offensive line, both starting offensive tackles, Jedrick Willis and DeJuan Jones, going to miss the rest of the season. It's not a pretty looking injury report, and it's not like Flacco, even though his numbers have been good in the first 2 games, Flacco's thrown a bunch of ducks that have been not intercepted. Do you worry about the Browns injury report? Do you worry about Flacco 3 weeks in, some of these ducks getting picked off?
Not by the Chicago secondary. To answer your first question, injury concerns, it's obviously always a little bit worrisome. And This line holding at 3, that's great information there that I didn't give out because I'm obviously on the Cleveland side. But I still think that the Browns have the talent and absolutely the capability to win this game at home, even with those guys out. Their secondary is extremely elite, and I think they'll probably produce multiple turnovers on Justin Fields. Joe Flacco, he's not a world beater. I know he's got a ring, but we can ride him in this game because Chicago's secondary is really, really bad. This is still, even with the injuries, the better team, and they'll show it on Sunday.
Jimmy Adams, WagerTalk.com, talking a little Sunday NFL. Let's turn our attention now to Saturday college football. And yes, college football is back in a big way this Saturday. We actually have 8 games on the board Saturday, 6 major bowl games. And then we have the Celebration Bowl between Howard, Florida A&M. We also have a semifinal FCS game, North Dakota State, Montana. So a lot of college football this Saturday. Let's look at the New Mexico Bowl, which features an in-state team. New Mexico State currently about a 3.5-point favorite against Fresno State. Total's been holding steady pretty much at 51, which is a very key number. Jimmy, what are you doing with the New Mexico Bowl at 5:45 Eastern Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, so New Mexico State and Fresno square off in Albuquerque, and this is one of those games where I think the motivational factor comes into play, along with everything else that I'm about to talk about. Fresno had high hopes coming into the year, right? And all they ended up doing was burning money for their backers all season long. 4-8 ATS, but what's really noteworthy is how the team finished the year. The Bulldogs lost their last 3 both straight up and against the spread. It all began with a blowout loss to San Jose State. That's where the wheels really fell off. Then they lost at home to New Mexico as a 23-point favorite, followed that up by losing against San Diego State, who's a 4-8 team. To make matters worse, their head coach, Jeff Tedford, announced that he's stepping away from the program due to health reasons. So this is yet another team that has to play without their head coach in a bowl. How do they respond? Do they even want to still be playing? Didn't seem like it the last 3 games of the season. Then you have a New Mexico State team that printed money for their backers, 10-4 straight up, 10-3-1 ATS. The Aggies were on an 8-game winning streak prior to losing to Liberty in the Conference USA Championship game. And the best part is they covered every single game in that span. They've been undervalued the entire season. This is also a homecoming for quarterback Diego Pavia, who's from Albuquerque, and he'll certainly want to play well, especially with the recent events that have surfaced about him. He's going to come out with an extra chip on his shoulder here. And then we have to get to Jerry Kill. I mentioned Fresno playing without their head coach. Well, Jerry Kill's an experienced coach. He's a program builder, and boy, has he done a great job at rebuilding this program. I'm confident he'll have his team ready to cap off what will be a program best 11 wins, while Fresno suffers yet another loss in what has been a disappointing season. Give me New Mexico State in Albuquerque on Saturday.
So let me start with this. I agree with the play 100%. I've made the bet myself. I would advise my clients to make that bet. But I'm going to ask you, the follow-up question has to ask about something about the other side. And my question here is you talked about the point spreads. All right. In general, in bowl season, I'm looking to back a team that is undervalued, a team that hasn't covered point spreads all year, as opposed to a team that has. New Mexico State comes in, they've got a betting bandwagon. They've been covering numbers all year. Fresno's been a dismal point spread team, as you mentioned. They've got no betting bandwagon. Isn't there potentially some value here on the Fresno side because of that? That's my biggest concern about the game. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think you've lost a lot of value, right? The Sharps hit this right off the opener, and you're at 3.5. You're having to lay the hook. And this is just one of those games where do you want any part to the Fresno State side? And I know you don't, Teddy, but to the viewers, like this Fresno State team was atrocious down the stretch. Like I mentioned, they lose outright to New Mexico, not to be confused with the Aggies here, as a 23-point favorite. They lose to San Diego State. They've lost their head coach now. Are they going to bring anything at all? New Mexico State, a very good football team. They're going to prove it, even though we're not necessarily getting the best number. they go out and cover this point spread on Saturday.
Yeah, it's interesting, guys. If you look at just the Sagergan ratings, for example, Fresno would be a 4 to 5 point favorite based on the regular season. So that just shows how the line has been changed a bit. And obviously, that's not necessarily the point spread, but some different metrics showing once again that the market is pricing in the fact Fresno's been in a pretty bad spot heading into this bowl game. We'll see how it plays out at 5:45 Eastern on Saturday afternoon. Jimmy, you mentioned half price Thursday. It's a fantastic offer at wagertalk.com. Every package up until midnight is half price. You've also been on some nice runs overall. I know your 5% plays continue to cash. You're very selective with those, and it's been paying off on a current 5% run, 5-1, 83% run on 5%ers, 15-4 college football run, perfect 5-0 sweep Thursday night football run. What do you got going on for half price Thursday?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. That was a great rundown of all the streaks. Half price Thursday, I've got a bet in the NFL tonight. I've got that 5%er that's in the NFL on Saturday. I've got some college football action, and we're going to continue to pump out the college basketball bets. Thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Thanks, Jimmy. Good luck this week. And as he mentioned, the advanced plays also. Any play for this weekend, Saturday bowl game, Sunday NFL, they're half price as well, but those go back to the normal price when the clock strikes midnight. So yet another reason to check out half price Thursday right now for every capper, including Jimmy Adams, Teddy Covers, and myself, Steve Merrill, at wagertalk.com. All right, Teddy, yesterday we learned that the wife was giving you the business. Hopefully the clocks were not changed. You got back into your studio, I see, so I think all is good. Let's focus on the NBA. You're going to have a big game breakdown a little later in the show, by the way, on an NBA game. But give me a little NBA talk here, what you learned last night.
So people ask, why do I love the NBA? And my NBA has been consistently good long-term. I'm above 59%, counting every play every day since like February 22. That's like approaching a 400-game sample size. So the NBA has been good long-term. What do I look for? I want to talk about the Houston Rockets as a prime example. After last night's win and cover against Memphis, the Rockets are now 15-2-1 against the spread in their last 18 games. They started the season 0-3. They had a couple of ugly blowouts. Since that 0-3 start, 15 wins, 2 losses, 1 push against the spread, if you just backed Houston game after game. This was a bottom feeder team last year. They were a bottom feeder team before. Basically since Harden left. Since Harden went to Brooklyn, Houston's been at the bottom of the NBA. But this year, they brought in a new coach, Udoka. He took the Celtics to the finals. They added some veterans. Dylan Brooks, attitude guy. Fred VanVleet, a former champion, and a point guard who can run the offense. Jeff Green, savvy veteran who won a title last year. So a couple of guys with rings, a couple of guys with attitudes, a new point guard, a new coach. They have, half a dozen lottery picks from the last 3 years? Maybe more. I forget everyone's draft position. But it couldn't have been more obvious to anyone paying attention that the Rockets were supposed to be better this year. Of course, they were. And unlike so many, many teams with championship dreams, the Rockets don't have championship dreams. This is a team that's focused on every individual game. They care about the regular season. When you read the quotes from the locker room late October, already this was a confident team. I remember reading a quote from Lakers coach Darvin Ham. I think I read it on this show, talking about how good Houston was going to be and how they were going to be a handful for everybody this year. This run from the Houston Rockets, you could see it in advance. You could see it when it happens. If you're paying attention, you could have ridden it. My clients and I have been riding it. All you have to do to make money in the NBA is pay attention. The Orlando Magic started 5-20 last year, straight up. They were a point spread disaster too. The rest of the year, major moneymaker. They didn't have one. They had 2 different 10-game ATS winning streaks. One in December, the other in March into April. The first 23 games this year, they're 17-6 against the spread. The markets have essentially priced Orlando wrong for a full calendar year. I highlighted Houston this year, or Orlando. I could have just easily highlighted Brooklyn, another team that's been mispriced from day one this season. 17-5 against the spread with a push after winning outright in Phoenix last night. What's the commonality of all these teams? What are we looking for? 1, non-spotlight market. They're not playing Madison Square Garden. They're not playing Golden State. They're not in LA. So it's, Brooklyn, Houston, Orlando, not the media centers. What else? No superstars on any of those teams. Without superstars, you don't get national TV games. You don't get on Christmas. You don't get NBA on TNT. There's no Zion. There's no Wembayana. There's no Trae Young. Quick, any of you out there, name me 4 starters for Orlando or Houston. I just gave you 2 a minute ago. Or Brooklyn. Anonymous teams. In the NBA, you can ride anonymous streak teams for a long, long time before the markets catch up. It's not that way in the NFL. It's not that way in college football. In the NBA, it is. And that's one of the reasons why I love this sport and why it's been so good for my clients and I in recent seasons. Houston Rockets, man, cashing in with them last night. That's what I learned. Steve, what about you?
I agree, man. I learned I love the NBA as well. We won again last night. I'm now up 40 net games since January, Teddy. 98 and 58 since January 1st this calendar year in the NBA. You've been on, I believe, a 31 and 13 run in the NBA over the last 5 weeks. I mean, we have Andy on talking darts. We have Carm talking NHL coming up. I always say use those guys, right? Teddy and I aren't doing hockey. We're not doing darts. But I think Teddy and I are probably the 2 best, most consistent NBA cappers over the last several decades. And we take the same approach. We look for streaking teams. And by the way, guess what cashed again last night, Teddy? The over in the Pacers game. What was it, 266 points? Other than those tournament games, they're like 14 and 2 over their last 16 real games. The NBA has runs like this, and teams remain undervalued, overvalued. By the way, the Rockets coming into this season were the worst point spread in the league the last 3 years combined. They were 95 and 135 against the spread. And even with, a 14 and 5 start or so, they're still the worst point spread team going back to 2020, even including this season. So there's still value with the upside there. NBA is all about situational handicap. Teddy, every sport is different, right? And I use situational handicapping in the NBA. I don't know about you, more than anything else. Maybe you have a starting point with power ratings and whatnot, but for me, it's pretty much all situational load management, who's ready to play.
And I use situations less and less in the NBA. Every year I use it less and less. Absolutely. I'm looking for a team like Houston or a team like Orlando or a team like Brooklyn that I can bet on every single game until the markets show they catch up. My clients and I have cashed, I don't know how many tickets with the Rockets during this span. I didn't add it up. 10, 12, over and over again. Back to the well with the same team. Your handicap's easy. Your write-up's easy. We're riding this team because they're undervalued right now. Done. And they are. And it's not even one team or 2 teams. There can be many teams that you can ride. And from a spot standpoint, in my mind, the spots are very well priced into the NBA these days. You're seeing, that situationally, you're not finding these great bargains betting against a team on the second of back-to-backs. Not every spot is priced correctly. We talked yesterday about how good the spot was for the Bucks against the Pacers in particular, but many spots are priced correctly, more correctly now than they were perhaps 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah, but see, I consider that situational handicap. When you're riding an undervalued team, I guess I phrase it differently. That's kind of situational for me still. You're not looking at, just necessarily raw power ratings. You've got to, although they're probably underrated in your power ratings, I guess, since they're, there's line value. But I think there are still situational spots. One I used this week, Monday night, the Dallas Mavericks, home dog, fading the Lakers off the Las Vegas tournament win 2 nights earlier. That wasn't priced correctly. The Lakers were a road favorite just because everybody was playing. So you have to look at motivation, I guess, is my point, more so than in the NFL where, for the most part, when you're only playing 17 games, everyone comes to play every week. I know there's flat spots. I talk about that in some videos this week here on WagerTalk TV. But, the NBA is a very unique sport. And it's funny, Teddy, people don't like watching NBA regular season. They're like, I don't follow the NBA. I don't bet the NBA. That's why this stuff works, because it's a different market than the other sports, in my opinion. But it's good stuff. And once again, Teddy on a 31 and 13 NBA run. I'm 98 and 58 this calendar year. You might want to check out Teddy Covers and Steve Merrill if you want to add to your NBA winnings this year. It's a great sport to bet. You don't even have to watch it. Just set it and forget it and make some money. Hey, speaking of setting it and forgetting it, you don't have to watch hockey either. We're going to talk some hockey here in a little bit with Carmine Bianco, our next guest. But Carm is excellent in the NFL as well. Huge cash last year in the Circa contest to start the year. He knows his NFL. And we have a barn burner tonight. Teddy and I have talked about it a couple times this week. Teddy did a big game breakdown on Tuesday's show. Go back and watch that. Raiders, Chargers. But Carm, I want to get some player props from you for tonight's Thursday night football game.
I wanted to thanks for having me on, guys. Not the most exciting game tonight, but it's a football game, and we love our football. So we're going to talk some player props instead of hockey. I just finished puck time, and there's a bunch of plays there that you guys can find on WagerTalk TV, and another free play that I posted as well too. But let's talk some player props, guys. The first one I want to talk about is the Aiden O'Connell passing yards. It currently sits at 203.5 right now, and I'm gonna take the over in that. And fearful of Teddy saying to me, "How are we taking overs when primetime unders are a thing?" But with that said, listen, the Raiders have looked a little bit better. You have to admit, with interim coach Pierce struggling to get a couple wins against the New York teams, and then they go down to Miami, play Miami very well in that one, lose by 7, come home, 14-point lead against the Chiefs, and then just completely cough up that game. And then they were involved in a soccer-type game that finishes 3-0 against the Vikings. But as far as O'Connell goes, he's averaging 32.8 pass attempts per game and 215 yards per game. You've got the Chargers, who they allow 261.9 passing yards a game, which is the fourth most passing yards allowed in the league this season. And it just seems like a good spot. 203 is a low number. The total in this game is what? 34.5. So they're not expecting a lot of points, but it doesn't mean you can't find props where you can take over with certain players and cash on those. And I think the Aiden O'Connell one is a good one that I think that I believe is gonna cash.
So the Chargers defense has actually been, from a points allowed perspective, surprisingly good. Last week against Denver, they held the Broncos to 14 or 17 into the fourth quarter. They shut out New England. Baltimore had 13 against them until that Zay Flowers didn't go down. They did a solid job against Green Bay. In Green Bay, they held the Jets to 6, the Bears to 13. It's not like this defense has been getting lit up all year long. I made a case earlier in the week for the over in tonight's game with the Chargers and the Raiders. So certainly when it comes to O'Connell's ability to sling the football around, I'm not against you in theory. But when we talk about the game plan for the Raiders tonight, coming off the shutout loss, is this a game they're going to be chucking the football around, or is this a game they're going to be trying to pound the rock? Because I got the sense there may be more of the latter than the former from Vegas tonight.
Yeah, I think the one thing that hurts, Teddy, and sorry to cut you off there. I think the one thing that hurts is as far as sort of the running game is you have to look at the players who are out. It doesn't always work this way, but the fact that Josh Jacobs is likely out, he's not going to play tonight. You rely on O'Connell to get some passing yards. If you like the over, you have to think from an offensive point of view that some of that is going to come from the passing game. Now, whether it's the passing game that gets them down into the red zone or not, and then the rush game takes over, remains to be seen, and we'll see that tonight. But it is such a low ceiling on this number. If this number was even 20 yards higher, I'd probably stay off of it. But I think he's gone over his number in 6 of 10 games thus far, if memory serves me correct. Or I'm looking at no, that's a different number I'm looking at. But he has gone over this numbers, and I feel good enough with it. One of the games I think he stayed under the number was against the Jets. The Jets are a very good defensive team, and especially against the pass. You got Sauce Gardner there, so it's tough to pass against that team. But I think he gets it done here. 203.5 yards is doable, and the fact that the running game may suffer tonight puts all the more pressure on him. And the fact that he's slinging it almost 33 times a game has to help.
It's Carmine Bianco. And Carm, I thought I'd done pretty well. The last 4 NFL Sundays, I'm 12-4, 75%. You've taken it to another level. Your last 5 NFL Sundays, 16-2. Carm's on a 16-2 NFL Sunday run. and year to date up almost 47 units of profit in the NFL. So definitely listen to him when he's talking pro football. And showing my age, Carmen, all the videos I've been doing the last couple of weeks, I keep saying San Diego Chargers, but now I've got an excuse, because I turned 50. So I'm going to try to get it right. Give me something for the Los Angeles Chargers. No Dan Fouts, no Kellen Winslow. Something for tonight's game from the Chargers side on a prop.
I still got 5 years on you, man. So I've been calling teams by the wrong names. I don't know what's going on. But as far as this one, I'm looking at Austin Eckler, over 29 and a half receiving yards. I didn't want to do an Austin, and these are both going to be client plays that I'm going to put up after the show for 2% each. But I didn't want to do the rushing yards with, or combined rushing receiving yards with Austin Eckler. And it's only because of the fact that the Raiders have been better defensively their last 4 or 5 games, and a little tougher to rush against. And the problem here is Keenan Allen also out tonight, and Eckler is a volume guy. Whether it's always a combination each and every week of rushing and receiving. He has gone over his total 66 of the last 10 games as far as receiving yards. And you have to think, and I love the name of this quarterback. It's got to be a hockey family, Easton Stick. If you're as old as me, you woke up playing hockey with an Easton Stick in your hands, and he's the QB tonight. Is it going to be a forward passing? It's going to be a passing game for the Chargers tonight. I think it's going to be a balanced attack. You give them the tools to move the ball down the field, but I just don't see them going a lot of deep plays here, a lot of stuff out of the backfield with Eckler, some of the safer passes. And I think he gets over this number of, you need 30 receiving yards to cash the ticket here. 54 targets for him this year, 36 receptions, 344 yards. He's hitting his number. He's hit his number receiving wise in, like I said, in 6 of 10 games. And this is why, like, from a fantasy perspective, and most of the fantasy leagues are done, the playoffs are starting now, he's not an RB1 type of guy this week. He's an RB2 kind of guy because of the Raiders rushing defense being a little bit better with under the new interim. So I'm looking at him to get those cheapies out of the backfield, where he gets those yards after the catch. He picks up 6 or 7. If he gets 4 targets, he's going to get there. Or if he gets 4 receptions, he's going to get there. But he's getting the targets, and that's the most important part. And again, with Keenan Allen out, you remove, I think his volume goes up just that much more because you got a receiver out of the lineup tonight. So I'm going over 29 and a half yards with Austin Eckler tonight. And that's receiving yards.
Yeah, receiving yards. So just looking, and as you're talking, I'm just looking at some stats, and it jumped off the page. Austin Eckler at home this season, 29 receptions, 305 yards, averaging 10 yards per reception. For the entirety of the season, that's 29 receptions at home. For the entirety of the season, I believe we played the same number of home and road games. 7 road receptions, 39 total yards on the highway. Game after game, nothing doing. At New England, 2 catches, 9 yards. At Green Bay, 2 catches, 3 yards. At the Jets, 2 catches, 23 yards. At Chicago, 1 catch, 1 yard. It's like, is there anything to that, or is that just randomness?
No, well, it could be random. It could be the teams that he's faced and the positions they're in. Beginning of the season, they play the Titans, and earlier on, as far as pass defense, I thought the Titans were better. You played the Vikings at the Chiefs. A lot of the times you're in, like I said, he's a volume guy, so he's getting the rushing yards. There's no need for the passing yards. You've got Keenan Allen, who's healthy at that point, and so you're not getting as many targets. Against the Panthers as a whole, they haven't been a very good road team at all. I think their only victory on the road, are against the Jets and Vikings. So they're not the greatest team on the road to start with. But I don't think that comes into it. Here, I think you have to keep an eye on it because you have to wonder, and you look at a lot of situational stats. But I think the fact that again you now have a different quarterback starting, obviously with Herbert not being there and an Easton Stick in there, I don't think Easton Stick plays with the whole playbook, that Herbert had. I have to think that they condense that down and they give him something that's workable. Neither of these teams is going to make the playoffs at 5-8, so I think it just becomes trying to get a win here and doing it the best way possible. Easton's not the second coming of Herbert. But we'll see what he can do tonight. Hopefully, some dump offs, like I said, to Eckler out of the backfield and get some of those yak yards is good enough for me.
It's Carmine Bianco. And by the way, Teddy Covers and myself, Steve Merrill, we both did solo videos for this game as well that are up on WagerTalk TV right now. So a lot of Thursday night content for this barn burner of a game between the Raiders and Chargers. The Oakland Raiders and the San Diego Chargers, correct? I think I got it right, with two backup quarterbacks
Yes.
for the most part. It's funny, Carm, that you say Easton Stick and hockey, because I was trying to make a baseball bat. The first thing I thought of was baseball, Easton, Pennsylvania, baseball bats. And I forgot I probably have an Easton hockey stick somewhere in storage here. I could have brought that out during the video. I'm really kicking myself now for not doing that. It would have added a little bit of a fun to what's in a very interesting game tonight. But anyway, Chargers, Raiders, Thursday night football. Carm's on his 16-2 Sunday NFL run, so don't miss his best bets this Sunday. And Carmine, it's half price Thursday. You mentioned Puck Time was on about an hour ago. Watch the replay here on WagerTalk TV for some NHL coverage. And Carm, what else you got going on for half price Thursday?
Yeah, so half price Thursday, some afternoon soccer Europa League games is final match day of the group stages until next season, or until February next year, 2024. Some NHL plays. The card is loaded, but it should be available for purchase shortly, right after the show. And I have a 5% play that goes on Sunday in the NFL. So you can get that for half price as well, too. And that returns to regular pricing at midnight. It's been a very good NFL season for me. I'm 16.1 ROI, which I'm pretty happy about, 48, 33-1 on the season. And like you said, up almost 47 units, 46.95. So let's see if we can keep that going.
Yeah, once again, he might be Canadian, but he knows his NFL. Cashed in the circa last year, big payday to start the season. Now he's on a 16-2 NFL Sunday run the last 5 weeks. Carmine Bianco, WagerTalk.com. And Teddy, in a couple minutes, we're going to get to Kyle Anthony. We've got UFC 296 in your neck of the woods at T-Mobile Arena this weekend. So a big UFC card. Kyle Anthony's going to break that down in a couple of moments. But in the meantime, let's get back to the NBA. Do a little big game breakdown style Celtics-Cavaliers tonight. What you got?
Sure. We aim to be a sports central for gamblers. So we're touching as many sports as we can on a daily basis. Let's talk a little NBA tonight for today's big game breakdown. The Cleveland Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics playing in Boston for the second time in 3 nights. Right now, looking at the WagerTalk live odds screen, Celtics have been bet up to -9. There was even a 9.5 out there. Total's been bet down a little bit. There were 226.5 overnight. Now we're looking at 225/225.5 at most locations. The Cavs have not been very good favorites this year, but when they step up in class, they've been pretty darn good. They've only been +4 or higher 5 times this year. On the road at New York, at Golden State, at Denver, at Philly, and at Boston on Tuesday. In those 5 games, 5-0 ATS for Cleveland, catching +4 or higher, 4-1 straight up. So they pulled off the outright upset 4 times. That's a pretty good track record as an underdog. Cleveland and Boston, they played, 8 times over the last 2 years. The Celtics have won exactly 0 of those games by double digits. 3 of the 4 meetings last year ended in overtime. The 4th was a 4-point decision. It was a 7-point game on Tuesday, a game that was tight throughout. It's not like Boston has a blowout track record in this matchup at all. Cavs coming off back-to-back losses. And no, they're going to be shorthanded again. Doesn't look like Evan Mobley's going to be able to suit up or not. But worth noting, 6-2 straight up off their last 8 losses at the beginning of November. And what are the 2 losses? They lost by 6 against the Lakers and by the 7 on Tuesday against Boston. So again, off a loss, bet on. Stepping up in class, bet on. The Celtics? Hey, this team looks really elite, right? They've also been really overpriced in recent weeks. 8-3 straight up their last 11 ball games, but only 3-8 against the spread. They're not winning games by margin. This number's too high. Cleveland +9, count me in. Steve?
Little big game breakdown from Teddy Covers, and don't forget there'll be more NBA talk. I'll actually be on the NBA show today at 4:15 Eastern here live on WagerTalk TV Thursday, and also the college basketball tip-off show. I'll be on there as well. Ryan Power, Adam Trigger, Joe Ranieri at 2 p.m. Eastern. So check out college and pro hoop shows later this afternoon here on the channel. Yet another reason to hit subscribe and hit the bell for instant alerts. Let's bring on Kyle Anthony. I talk about diversifying the portfolios. Teddy and I have been crushing the NBA. Well, we don't do UFC, we don't do MMA, but Kyle does. He specializes in it. And Kyle, I know you've had a fantastic season once again with mixed martial arts. And we've got one of the bigger ones going this weekend, T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas, Nevada, UFC 296. Kyle, welcome. What are you looking at?
Yeah, got some good plays here today. We're absolutely going to be talking about the main event here. We have Colby Covington versus Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards -160 when you're looking at it. The other side here, you've got Colby Covington +130, and it's climbing a little bit as well. But this is a classic grappler versus striker type of matchup here where you're going to be having Colby Covington diving at legs, looking to push Leon up against the fence, keep him there, control him. And the thing that he does so great is he just chain wrestles so well, relentlessly looking to push the pace, keep him up against the fence. And that's really where Edwards is going to have to kind of utilize some of his skill set when it comes to defending the takedowns. He's got a 70% takedown defense rate, while Covington has a 45% success rate on takedowns. He averages about 4 takedowns per 15 minutes. So he's going to, we know the game plan. This is no surprise here, what he's looking to do. Now, you do have Leon Edwards, who has continued to show better and better defense when it comes to that against Usman in their last fight. He was 4 for 15 Usman on takedowns with about 5 minutes of control time, while you did see Covington 6 for 15 in his last fight against Masvidal with 16 minutes of control time. Now, if this stays on the feet, Edwards is going to have the advantage. He's got a fantastic kicking arsenal to the leg, the body, the head. He mixes it up very well. He works at range very well. A lot of times, really, Colby Covington is looking to utilize his striking, cut distance, a little bit sloppy at times, but to cut distance, get his hands on you, and those are the things that he's going to look to really do. The biggest thing for me here, and the biggest red flag that I see on the Leon Edwards side, is the fact of his very low volume output. This, to me, really opens up the doors for someone like Covington. If you look at it, Leon Edwards averages 2.8 significant strikes landed per minute. On the other side, you've got Colby, 4.1 significant strikes landed per minute. But the big difference here is going to be the distance strikes thrown per minute. It's 8 for Leon Edwards. It's 18 for Colby Covington. Now, for me, a guy who has a wrestling path and these lapses of time where there's not going to be much action and Colby can push the pace, get him up against the fence, work him, level change, those kinds of things. Just the fact that there's no sense of urgency a lot of times for Edwards could get him a little bit behind the 8 ball in this fight. So I do see the market is going towards Edwards here. I don't agree with it. I like Colby Covington. I think the path is there. The volume is there. The output is there. I like him to go out there and get the job done. And this is starting to now get over to +140. I think it's a good spot. I like Covington in the main event.
So why do you think the markets are moving towards the favorite here? Because it's pretty clear that the markets have moved heavily in favor of Edwards. I mean, this was -125, -130 at the open, and now we're looking as high as -170. And obviously, this isn't the public betting. This is the guys who are moving markets betting. What are they seeing that you disagree with?
I think the biggest thing is what just happened for Edwards, where he fought a wrestler in Usman. He defended the takedowns. He did those kinds of things. He got the space he needed. He was able to get that knockout. I mean, that first fight, he was outright losing 24 minutes of that fight, Edwards was, and he got that knockout. Second fight, he came back a little bit more confident, and Usman really at the tail end of his career, Colby getting up there, but I think the relentless pace that Colby does compared to Usman is going to be the game changer with the level changes. I think this is a great spot for him, and I think Colby gets the title.
It's Kyle Anthony talking UFC 296. He's already got a package loaded with 3 plays currently. And when you buy that package, when he adds more plays, you get notified right away. Get in, get the best lines on these fights. Kyle, let's keep it going here. UFC 296 gave us the main event. Give us something maybe on the undercard as well.
Yeah, so here we've got Paddy Pimblett. He's minus 330. On the comeback, you've got Tony Ferguson. He's around the plus 240 mark. Now, this is the spot when you're looking at this fight. The big question is Tony Ferguson washed? Is he done? Can he take a punch? Is he just completely done? And the answer is probably. I mean, it's probably he's done, but he is on a 6-fight losing streak. But the thing when you're looking at that is he has fought some of the top-level guys over that 6-fight losing streak. I mean, Justin Gaethje, Michael Chandler, Charles Oliveira, Beneil Dariush, Bobby Green, okay, even Nate Diaz is a little iffy, but he has lost to top-level guys. And you have to take this now in account that this is going to be a step down for him, even though Paddy is starting to come up. This is a step down for him. Now, Paddy, on the other side, has not faced anybody of high level, obviously, because he's coming up, and this is the kind of thing that the UFC is really protecting him. But the last fight that he had against Jared Gordon was supposed to be a little bit of a step up, and Paddy kind of got exposed. He was getting clipped a lot. Gordon is not known for his striking. He was landing. The strikes over the 3 rounds was 63-60, plus Gordon had 3 takedowns with 6 minutes of control time. And somehow he lost that fight. The Barstool guys were there. This is their Barstool guys, so who knows what was going on there. But he did get the victory. Now, I think on the other side, Tony Ferguson, he just recently fought Bobby Green. And listen, Bobby Green, he's a journeyman. He's had some wins. He's had some losses. But the thing that he does really well is his boxing. He works at range. He's got good striking. He's got good angles, distance management. And Tony was just out of sorts. He did get beat up 137-54 on significant strikes. But what I liked is he took a punch. He didn't just collapse. He didn't just go down and get knocked out. The only guys that had knocked him out over that span was Justin Gaethje, who beat the hell out of him for 5 rounds and knocked him out in the 5th round. And then Michael Chandler, where Chandler probably dropped the first round. And in the second round, he, front kicked his head into the rafters. So, I mean, there are those situations. And then also you look at this with the grappling side of things. Paddy is not a guy that has this high-level wrestling. If he's on the ground, he is lethal. He can get those finishes. He's very, very good with that. Transitions, reversals. He's really great with that. But Paddy is 2 for 8 on takedowns in the UFC. His last fight against Gordon, which was the step up, he was 0-3 on takedowns. So for me here, you got Tony Ferguson at 66% takedown defense rate. I think this is actually going to be somewhat competitive, and I think that Paddy's going to go out there and get this job done. He's very hittable. There could be some iffy moments. I think this gets to the scorecards, and getting off the big minus 330 number, I think Paddy via points plus 220 is great value here because, again, this is a step up for him, step down for him, and I don't think this is going to be playing out on the ground for most of it. So I think it's a pitter-patter fight, and it gets to the scorecard. So I do like Paddy plus 220 via points.
So here's my follow-up, Kyle, and please, if we can, keep that picture up, because to me, that's, like the Mo haircut, we used to call it a Mo, is that designed to be less intimidating? Is that, can we really ask a fighter with a haircut like that to win a fight?
This is his thing. It's like his trademark. It's like his thing that he does. So I guess this is kind of his thing, but he's a wild guy. He's a hype train. People love him. UFC bringing him up slow. He talks a lot. So that also helps the UFC. They love that hype kind of stuff. But yeah, the haircut, hey, maybe we'll get Prez to do that one day.
Kyle, just looking at the picture, my first thought where I thought Teddy was going with this was youth versus age. Ferguson just looks over the hill in that photo versus an up-and-comer. And it's sad because he's been one of my favorites over the years. I always loved watching him fight, and you do kind of hate to see a NFL quarterback hang on too long or a UFC fighter hang on too long and lose 6, maybe most likely now 7 in a row. That's Kyle Anthony, though. He wins. He does not lose. 7-1 best bet run. You've cashed 7 of your last 8 UFC events. By the way, Kyle has an additional free UFC play, a plus money underdog on his page right now. And also you can get access to his official best bets for this weekend. Tell us more about your UFC package, UFC 296.
Yeah, so this week right now, I've got a 5%. Best bets are really hitting. Like you said, 7-1. Feeling good about this one coming up. All 3 of my plays right now, all at plus money. Love finding that plus money. It's really been hitting for us this year. Feel good about it this week. And again, normally I'll have about 4 or 5 positions this weekend on the card. So take a look at it, and it's that price, like we were saying.
Yeah, once again, a great way to diversify your portfolio. The number one MMA capper the last 3 years combined at WagerTalk, and he does a lot of plus money. It's another reason to play Kyle Anthony's UFC 296 best bet. Load it right now at WagerTalk.com. And Teddy, I enjoyed doing the show with you the past couple weeks. Prez said 100% he is back tomorrow and Friday, so the sports books have it at about 85, 90% for those that are keeping track at home. But most likely the Prez will return tomorrow with Teddy covers. So on the way out, I want to let people know real quick. I know you all razzed me earlier, and I've got the proof. It was my birthday. It was my 50th. So to celebrate, we're doing a half price through this weekend on any subscription. Since I'm halfway to 100, you get an instant half price, 50% discount on any subscription on a 25-9 run the last couple of weeks. I've been red hot in football and basketball. It's a great time to get on board. We talked about how strong the NBA is. College and pro football sides, number one the last 2 years combined at WagerTalk. College hoops running well. Check it out right now. You can do a 1 day, a 1 month, a 1 week, a 1 year. A lot of people have gone on that 1 year. That's an instant $1,000 discount. That's pretty smart holiday shopping. But once again, you got to have promo code halfway. So check that out on my page, Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. Half price with promo code halfway. And of course, it is half price Thursday, which means we all have our daily picks for half price. Teddy on a monster run, as he told you, 31-13, NBA 70% run. And he's got a half price NBA best bet here for Thursday night, along with some college football as well. Also a free college football play on Teddy's page, so check that out. Teddy, enjoyed doing the show with you. We will catch up soon. You and I both do an NBA tip-off at 4 o'clock Eastern, a lot of weekdays. College hoops on at 2 Eastern. Take us home, my man.
Sure. That's going to wrap it for the Thursday edition of Wager Talk Today. We'll do it again tomorrow. Same time, same channel. 9 a.m. here on the left coast, noon for you back east. Between now and tomorrow's show, enjoy the games and best of luck with all your bets.